You ever wake up and realize you've just become the main character in someone else's twisted soap opera? Let me tell you something. Nothing in this world prepares you for the sight of 500 rainbow trout floating belly up in the lake you've spent years building your life around. That stench. My God. It hit me so hard I nearly fell off my dock. I could taste it in the back of my throat. If you've never smelled rotting fish, at sunrise count yourself lucky. I'm Ezra Blackwood, disabled Army vet, the guy who spent 5 years turning his grandfather's Montana ranch into a sustainable trout farm. This lake, Clearwater, was my everything. Then, at 7 in the morning, who comes marching out, mug in hand, right onto my dock? Delilah Thornfield. My HOA president. My personal nightmare. Her coffee probably tasted like victory that day. She just stood there smirking at the floating carnage, then tossed her hair back and said real sweet, "Maybe now you'll shut down this disgusting fish operation." You ever meet someone who gets off on making other people miserable? That's Delilah. And, in case you're wondering, she dumped 40 pounds of copper sulfate into my lake at 2 in the morning. Not an accident. Not ignorance. She did it on purpose just to wipe out my fish because she hated the view of folks fishing from her deck. Environmental terrorism, right? Against a disabled vet, no less. You have no idea what you've just done, I told her. She just laughed. I solved a neighborhood problem. I hope you never meet anyone like her, but if you do, here's a piece of advice. Sometimes karma doesn't need your help. It just takes its sweet time. Let me rewind and show you how this all started, how one woman's hatred set her up for her own spectacular downfall. And yeah, there's a twist coming you won't see coming. So, 5 years ago, I'm back in the States trying to figure out how to start over. After an IED in Afghanistan, shredded my left leg, and ended my 20-year Army career. You don't just come home and move on, let me tell you. V. A check barely covered rent. My medical bills haunted me like old ghosts. Then, Grandpa passed, and I inherited this ranch. 200 acres. 40-acre lake so clear you could see trout 20 feet down. Clearwater Lake. It's a little piece of heaven 300 feet up from the valley, fed by mountain springs so clean it makes your lungs ache. Most people would just fish and relax. Not me. I saw survival. I spent 2 years reading up on aquaculture, another year fighting for permits, and 2 more building floating pens out on the water. Year 5, I had almost 200 grand invested, but I was making it work. The sound of those trout jumping at dawn, that beat any alarm clock. Then came the invasion. California money buying up land down the road, fancy subdivision called Willowbrook Estates. 47 McMansions sprouting up like pimples on the Tatum family's old cattle ranch. Each house cost more than everything I'd ever owned in my life. They bulldozed 200 acres, then started lecturing about preserving rural charm. Thing is, none of those folks realized their drinking water came from my lake. The aquifer runs right through the limestone under my property, feeds those springs, then pops up in Willowbrook's fancy wells. The county's geological survey shows it buried in records nobody ever reads. Every cup of coffee those people made Clearwater Lake on its way from my backyard to their breakfast nook. And then, Delilah, 58 retired compliance officer, full-time control freak. You ever seen someone who finds joy in catching others doing something wrong? That's her. She'd been rejected 3 times by the local fishing club for not understanding etiquette. So when she saw my fish farm attracting customers, something snapped. The old-timer ranchers supported me. They got it. The new folks, not so much. It all boiled over when Billy Redstone, a local fishing guide, started bringing clients to my lake. We're talking maybe 15 people on a busy weekend. Nothing wild, but that was enough to send Delilah into overdrive. First attack came on a Tuesday. I'm feeding trout, enjoying the sunrise when here she comes. High heels on gravel. "Mr. Blackwood, your fishing circus ends today." She waved a manila folder like she was about to serve a warrant. Your commercial operation violates our covenant 4.7b. All fishing activities must cease. And you'll install an 8-foot privacy fence, cost estimate $47,000. I told her, ma'am, this is my property. Your covenants don't apply here. She just smiled, cold enough to freeze the lake. Watch me prove you wrong, soldier boy. 30 days, or we'll bury you in legal fees. She handed me the violation notice, the paper snapping in the wind. Some of us understand property values, Mr. Blackwood. Your little hobby is costing us real money. She didn't get it. By trying to kill my fish farm, she was about to contaminate her own water supply. Sometimes karma works underground. For the next week, my mailbox looked like the legal section of a bookstore exploded. Zoning complaints, environmental reports, business license challenges. She filed everything but a noise complaint about my coffee pot. Then came the county inspection. Jake Morrison, clipboard in hand, shows up Thursday. The guy looks like he'd rather be anywhere else. But I spot a Marine Corps tattoo under his sleeve. I introduce myself, tell him I'm an Army engineer. He grins, relaxes. Let me guess, some HOA princess with too much time? Turns out Jake's got a radar for these situations. Seen it all before big money city folks moving to Montana, weaponizing bureaucracy to bully locals. We talked while he inspected every inch of my operation. Water tests, fish health, even my aeration bubbles. He nods, writes notes, finally says, "This is textbook. NASA could run this place. Whoever filed this complaint, about to be real disappointed." He files his report, not only clearing me, but torching Delilah's credibility. Said my stewardship was exceptional. Even called out her complaints as potentially motivated by personal animus. That's bureaucratic, for she's out of her mind. You could hear Delilah's sanity snapping across 3 counties. She doubled down. Filed new complaints, this time about groundwater contamination. Triggered another round of paperwork. Then came her master stroke. One morning, 3 black SUVs rumble up my drive. 6 guys in tactical gear pile out like they're raiding a meth lab. "Step away from the water, sir. You're under investigation." Delilah climbs out, clipboard in hand, wearing the world's biggest smirk. She hired private security to play cop, trying to intimidate a disabled vet. I called Jake right there. Put him on speaker. "Jake, I got 6 wannabe commandos and my HOA president playing sheriff." 30 minutes later, real deputies arrive. They tell the security goons to pack up or face trespassing charges. Delilah's crew leaves with their tails between their legs. She hisses, "This isn't over." I said, "Next time, hire someone who knows property law." But she wasn't done. 2 weeks later, Billy calls Ezra. They're blocking the county road. Signs guards the works. I drive down, see 2 rent-a-cops turning away families like it's a nightclub. "This is a county easement," I tell the guard. He looks at me like I'm speaking Greek. "Ma'am says it's private. HOA business." Here's what most folks don't know. Blocking public easements, especially when you're interfering with out-of-state business, is a federal crime. Billy's fishing guide service brought in clients from 3 states. That made it interstate commerce. Not that Delilah's goons could spell Commerce Clause if you spotted them the first 8 letters. Then, 3 days later, lawsuit taped to my door. 23 pages demanding I shut down and pay 50 grand in damages. It read like someone watched too much Law and Order and thought real life worked that way. She was betting my disability check would crack before her lawyer's patience did. But then I got an unexpected ally. Emma Vasquez, a reporter, former military spouse, shows up, says she's covering rural gentrification stories. She sees Delilah's guards blocking a disabled vet and his grandson from fishing. Kid can't be more than 8 clutches his rod and says, "But Grandpa promised we'd catch trout." Emma's photographer gets the money shot. American injustice right there. Emma asked Delilah on camera, "Given your experience in compliance, you know blocking public easements is a federal crime, right?" Delilah freezes. Suddenly, she's not so chatty. The story goes statewide. County orders Delilah to take down the blockade or face prosecution. The signs vanish overnight. But public humiliation only made her more dangerous. Margaret Wu, the HOA treasurer, calls me Ezra. She's authorizing an emergency chemical treatment. 40 pounds of copper sulfate, says your lake is contaminating groundwater. My heart nearly stopped. Anyone in aquaculture knows copper sulfate is a killer. Used right, it controls algae. Used wrong, it sterilizes a lake. Margaret told me Delilah bought it on the HOA card, claiming the county recommended it. I didn't sleep for 3 nights. Set up cameras. Listened to every sound in the dark. She struck on a moonless night at 2:17 a.m., caught on my wildlife cam kayaking around dumping bags into the water. Next morning, apocalypse. Stench so thick you could chew it. Hundreds of dead trout everywhere. 5 years of work gone. These fish weren't just stock, they were proof I could still build something. Billy arrived, started taking pictures. This isn't natural die-off, he muttered. Someone murdered your lake. Wildlife officer Rebecca Torres came with her lab kit. Copper sulfate readings off the charts, enough to kill a lake 10 times this size. We pulled footage there. She was in all her glory, caught on camera. And then we found the paper trail, Delilah's HOA credit card, at the feed store security footage of her buying the chemicals. Subtle as a brick. But karma, like I said, works underground. What Delilah never understood is how the aquifer worked. Dr. Foster, a geologist, showed me on a map the water from my lake runs through limestone caves, comes out 6 weeks later in Willowbrook's wells. Delilah hadn't just killed my fish. She'd set a ticking time bomb under her own house. 47 households. Their safe copper limit is 1.3 parts per million. My lake after the attack was at 47. Emma's eyes lit up when she realized the story. They have no idea. Do they? She said. Nope, Dr. Foster replied. When that copper hits kids, old folks, they'll start getting sick. I said, so what do we do? Emma said, we warn them. But first we built an airtight case. Water samples, timelines, security footage, HOA purchase records. I was angry, yeah, but this wasn't about revenge. There were kids over there, people who didn't deserve to get poisoned. We set up for the HOA's annual meeting. Emma coordinated the media. Dr. Foster brought the science. Billy rallied the vets. I set up 2 aquarium tanks. One had clean spring water, healthy trout swimming. The other had water spiked to match what their wells would be in 3 weeks. Right there in front of everyone, Delilah included, I dropped live trout in both. The ones in the contaminated tank gasped, rolled belly up in minutes. Dr. Foster showed the maps the chemistry. Your drinking water is coming from the same lake she poisoned, I told the room. The crowd turned on Delilah so fast, she looked like she'd aged 10 years in 5 minutes. Then I offered her a glass from the contaminated tank. If it's safe for the neighbor's kids, it's safe for you, right? She stared at it silent. Didn't take a sip. Didn't even breathe. That was it. FBI agents moved in. Delilah Thornfield, you're under arrest for environmental terrorism. The handcuffs snapped loud enough for everyone to hear. 18 months later, the lake is cleaner than ever. FEMA trucks delivered water to Willowbrook until the copper cleared out. The HOA dissolved. Janet Powell, former teacher, started the environmental cooperative. My fish farm rebounded thanks to compensation funds and insurance. We built an education center for vets and local kids. Emma won awards for her reporting. Dr. Foster's research helped communities nationwide. You know what the real lesson is? Sometimes people like Delilah, so obsessed with what they hate, never bother to understand how things work. She knew she hated my lake. She never realized her morning coffee came from it. She had her rules, her lawyers, her power. But I had knowledge, patience, and well science. 6 weeks. That's all it took for her poison to flow right back to her own tap. Maybe you've known a Delilah, someone so focused on winning, they stopped paying attention to reality. Or maybe you've been on the other side powerless but patient, waiting for the truth to catch up. So tell me, where do you draw the line between fighting back and letting karma run its course? Ever seen someone poison their own well, literally, or not trying to get at you? Share your story below. Let's see if justice ever really tastes as sweet as clean cold water on a Montana morning.